Welcome to the Tilehurst podcast, episode 364. Hope you've had a very Merry Christmas and are looking forward to hopefully a more prosperous new year in 2024 for Reading Football Club. We've got quite a lot to get through today, really. We've got some games to talk about and kind of a semi-review of 2023 from our writers. With me, as always, is Ross, but he's actually in England. Whereabouts are you right now, Ross? And don't say sat on a chair.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit outside of Andover. I'm in the lovely town of Goodworth, Clatford. It's called Goodworth, Clatford because the town next door is called Upper Clatford. And
Right.
It used to be Lower Clatford, but they didn't like that very much. So they changed it. It's Goodworth, Clatford now. So no Lower Clatford for us over here. But yeah, back in England, had a lovely Christmas. Had a nice time at Cheltenham last night. Lovely little town, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, excited to review the year.
Yeah, well, I often call where I live in Tilehurst Upper Tilehurst, literally because I'm right at the top of the hill. But people don't like that either because they think I'm just making stuff up, which is probably true.
Right.
People who don't make stuff up are ZCZ Films. Thank you very much, as always, to their sponsorship and goodwill and gestures and just overall support, really. And also, before we kick off the final pod of 2023, because we're recording this on Saturday the 30th, just a huge thank you to everyone who's listened in, who's chipped in with questions, who sent us emails, which we absolutely love, by the way. We don't really keep track of how many listeners we do have and ratings and all that sort of stuff, but we know we've got kind of a pretty hardcore group of listeners, and myself and Ross took over in the summer, as you will know, took over from the fantastic Martin Mayo, who we will hear a little bit from later on in terms of his views. But we really appreciate you listening, and we know it's been an absolute horrific calendar year for this football club. Like, we thought 2022 was bad, right? And then 2023 comes along and says, "Hold my latte." But look, we're really, really appreciated that you stuck with us, and hopefully we give you the balance that you need from a Reading FC podcast. We're going to get into a review of kind of three games, really, but we're going to focus in on the Cheltenham game, which was last night. So we're going to do that right now in the recap.
Come rain or shine, it's time to relive the latest match action with the recap.
This podcast is sponsored by ZCZ Films, Reading's oldest ultras.
Alrighty, three games to kind of embedded in the Christmas period, really. Started with Wigan at home on the 23rd. I'm losing track of the days, Ross. I don't know about you, but I'm just like, what physical day is it? I'm good with the dates, but the actual day, no idea.
Don't worry, it's difficult. This is the nether region between Christmas and New Year's, of course. I've had to work because I'm American-based, but difficult time.
It is. It's tough. But anyway, a week ago, we played Wigan at home, 2-0. Thoroughly enjoyed it, I have to say. Absolutely loved it. It kind of shows you, doesn't it, when we win games, what it does for your overall mood and feeling and all that kind of stuff. So, we were 2-0 there, which we'll come back to in a minute. Then we went to Peterborough, which for me was result of the season, but no questions asked whatsoever. Like, the resilience that we showed there was great with a 2-2 draw. And then, of course, we go across to Cheltenham, if you are Reading-based and you went across to the game, with another 2-2 draw last night against, a really informed team, actually. I think there was a few fans who really kind of downplayed what Cheltenham and in particular Darryl Clark have achieved over the last couple of weeks, because they've been on quite a run. Let's briefly talk about Wigan. Because obviously a win is always a welcome treat at any time of the year, let alone Christmas. Goals from Aziz and Smith. Obviously Smith scored again against Peterborough on Tuesday on Boxing Day. How good has he been for you, Ross, considering that actually he's been injured for quite a large part of this period of time in this season? How well has he done to kind of settle back into what is essentially chaos at this football club?
I'm always impressed by how well he can hold the ball up for a player of his size. We had Lucas Shaw for a long time, and something that we wanted him to do over and over was to actually hold the ball up and be able to bring others into play, and he just seemed completely incapable of doing that probably why he didn't really start for Paul Ince. I mean, there were other reasons, but he just wasn't capable of doing, those basics. But Sam Smith, he's not a huge lad, but he does bring others into play well. And when, for instance, last night, when Reading did get the ball down eventually, he was able to help sort of flick the ball on to other players around him and things like that. Yeah, so I think it's a really good point. I think one of our writers has got him down as his most improved player, which sounds a bit odd, obviously, because he's been good all season. But if you consider where he was when he left the football club, he's really developed and really come on. So Smith has been great this season, and it was no surprise to see him come back into the team against Cheltenham. But he's just always dangerous. Got a great relationship with Aziz, got a good relationship with Wing, and those three in particular, with Nibs sort of buzzing around as well, really caused teams problems. So Smith has been definitely been a bright spot since he came back, and the form of the team since he came back kind of speaks for itself. If you want to look at how good he's been, really, doesn't it?
I mean, it's an interesting point about his physicality, because actually look at him, and apart from the fact he's incredibly handsome,
Right?
He doesn't look, he doesn't look like he's going to be able to do that dirty work of holding the ball up, but he does really well. And I said in the summer when he came back, when we did our kind of season preview, that I'm always very dubious about when players go back to clubs. I just don't think it works on average. We've kind of been burned before, really, but I'm absolutely delighted that he's come back, and injury aside, has done really, really well. And I think one of the positives is that fans look forward to seeing him play. And I think actually that's one of the things that we've missed over the years, certainly over the last 5 years. We've been very short on players that we can go, I can't wait to see this guy play, and see what he can do. I still think he could be better. I think if he had someone a little bit closer to him, maybe in central midfield, or maybe if they were kind of putting balls through the floor a little bit more kind of down the middle, he'd have even more goals. But, the thing is that he's kind of scoring goals in a fairly inconsistent team at the moment. And, you raised the point about Wing and obviously Aziz, who I want to mention as well, because we went across to Peterborough, or up to Peterborough, getting my geography all wrong, which for me was result of the season. Absolutely, I think everyone, connected with Reading Football Club was anticipating a loss there, given how well Peterborough have done, not just in form.
I think the BBC were anticipating a loss, right?
Well, they were, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you were watching it, if you were watching it on Royals TV, or you were there, but you were just following it on kind of social media, or, the modern teletext, as I call it. But, they just kept adding goals to Peterborough. Every time we scored, I think it got to 3-1 or 3-0 or something. It was just bonkers.
I was very confused, obviously, when I was, because I was elsewhere, unfortunately, for that one. And I, very, very confused when I saw 3-1 Peterborough Aziz and no mention of an own goal.
It's like they've added players to their squad without anyone knowing. And it's also adding to the kind of the hysteria of what they actually is. It's like, who even plays for this club anymore? Like, what's going on? But yeah, look, I mean, the resilience that we showed in that game, I thought was absolutely exceptional. And look, from a pure football point of view, we did get battered by them. Like they were definitely, on average, if it was a boxing on points, boxing match on points, you'd give it to Peterborough 100%. But we did really, really well to get back in, and the goal that Aziz finished off was quite simply one of the goals of the season from us, from a team point of view. Ross, we've always been pretty, not soft. That's not right, but we've always been pretty lenient with Aziz. I know that obviously people in the fan base haven't, but you in particular have always kind of had faith in his abilities. Just talk us through, similar to what you did with Smith, but just kind of mention a few points about Aziz in terms of how you feel about him. But also kind of where he can kick on from here now. Like, what else has he got to do to keep achieving what he's achieved over the last few games?
I sat with the Cheltenham fans last night, and while we were absolutely rubbish for 40 minutes, nobody, they were giving it the big one about us, which was completely fair enough, because we were poor, and Cheltenham had a good game plan against us that really nullified us. But Aziz was the player that was giving them fits. You know, he was the one that whenever the ball came out to him, it's just clear that he has something about him, and he gives the defenders trouble. The defenders don't get as close to him. They try and like back off a little bit and make sure that they're not leaving, you know, too much space. They clearly knew that he could shoot from outside of the box really, really well. So they weren't allowing him that as much as they could. You know, one of his real stingers got blocked just inside. Yeah, I think that he is going to be Reading's most important player in terms of trying to get out of League One, right? Like, yes, he's important now for the relegation battle, and this season, I'm hoping that we're going to be coming out of the relegation zone, you know, on Monday against Exeter, but it's still going to be a little bit of a struggle. I'm sure there's going to be, you know, there's going to be some more difficult spells ahead, I'm sure. But Aziz and Wing, but Aziz is one of those players that you expect, you know, could play at the top end of this division, if not higher, as well as where he is now. The way in which he is both fast and strong on the ball when he's dribbling is really impressive, and the way in which he something that we try and coach into the wingers, you know, in the youth level, is the ability to change speed very quickly and still maintain control of the ball. And that's something that Aziz is really good at. You know, he can burst when he wants to, but when he needs to cut inside, because he's being marked by two, as he often is, he's capable of cutting inside, but then getting his body across and making sure that he doesn't lose you know, the ball when a player sticks out his leg or whatever. So I think that's why we get to see him, you know, getting two decent positions to score so often. And then finally, just a word on that goal against Wigan. Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely, isn't it? That's a bit of fun. You get that falling to you in a five-a-side game and you are absolutely smashing that into Rosie. Yeah. You having a lovely old time.
I mean, he's scored a couple of bangers this season, but he's done two in a week, really. And you know, that Peterborough goal was an absolute rocket as well. Like that would, if there was no net on that, that'd still be going. Do you know what I mean? That was a real screamer. I was looking, because I keep a rough notepad of what we talk about in the pods and stuff, because we do research. You know, we do a little bit of research now and again, and I do as well, believe it or not. And there was one, I think it was around the late 40s, so 348, 49. And I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I did say that if Aziz gets in confidence and he scores a couple of goals, he won't stop. And that's been the case with him. And you can say what you want about Sellers, and we do, and I do, and people have done. But if he likes you, he will give you sort of 10, 11, 12 games to keep going and work it through. Whereas, you know, if this was Paul Ince or maybe even Paunovic, he would have made changes and kind of almost frozen him out of the squad. And I'm not saying that Sellers hasn't done that, because we're seeing that with a number of players, which we won't go into right now. But, you know, with Aziz, he is very much a confidence player. And I think if he can keep up this goal scoring and kind of attacking attribute that we see currently, we're going to have a really good player for years to come, hopefully. And also, he's a nice guy. And I know people go, it doesn't really matter. But, you know, for me, it does. Like, he clearly wants to do well. He clearly wants to be, you know, loved by the fans and stuff. And I think that's a real positive, really. So yeah, Peterborough, stunning result for me. Result of the season so far. I thought it was absolutely excellent. The resilience to score late on as well and keep going. I know we hit the post as well, or the bar or whatever. So that there was a lot of positives to take away. And then, of course, Ross, we go across to Cheltenham, the completely Suzuki Stadium. Love the idea that it wouldn't be a completely Suzuki, almost like a Suzuki Kawasaki hybrid or something.
I kept typing totally Suzuki into my sat nav and getting very frustrated when it didn't come up. Silly name for a stadium.
It is. It's weird, and it used to be Wadham Road, and I thought that was excellent for a stadium. You know, just call it where it is. Yeah. But anyway, whatever. We digress. And then, of course, all the positivity that we had at the end of Peterborough was literally shattered in the space of 44 minutes. Yeah. Last night, which quite honestly was one of the worst showings I've seen from any Reading team. And I know we say that every time we have a bad performance, but like I was just watching it and I thought, I literally don't know what I'm watching here. The goal, their second goal. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I probably wouldn't, because it was quite a shocker, wasn't it, Ross?
Yeah, no, it was it's a quick it's a last minute change for my, comedy moment of 2023, because it is just the most like like my wife watches the games with me, and we play, together as well, and she talks about how the players have such wonderful composure on the ball a lot of the time, in comparison to the players that we play with. We love you guys, obviously, but anyway, I digress. It's just the least composure you've ever seen in your life from a Bengay, who has just got it's all wrong. Like, he's got his head down, he's not looking around him at all, and he just smashes the ball into Button's legs. And it
I just
ends
don't
up
know
in the
what he's
back of the
doing.
net.
Like, we can
No.
laugh about it now because we got out there with a point, but like, I've watched it several times, because at first, that looks a bit iffy, like, looks a bit messy,
Yeah.
And then
We had a
just
good laugh.
resembled something like, yeah,
We had a good laugh in
horrible.
with the Robins fans up there in the home thing. That was pretty funny. There's a goal scored that we conceded a few seasons ago. I can't remember now, but where we one of our defenders smashed the ball off the legs of the opposing striker when he was trying to clear it, and it skewed back into our own net. And that had always been my, that's what Sporting Reading FC is like, moment. But I think this is going to overtake it now. For me, this is classic.
For slightly older fans, I say older fans because I'm, not that old, but 2001 playoff final against Walsall, it was either Rougier clearing the ball and smashing it against Barry Hunter's bum, or the other way around. But that one, if you go on YouTube and just type in Reading Walsall 2001, I love the fact I'm telling people how to use YouTube. It's not a kind of a standard thing. But anyway, look at that, because that's very similar. And that was a horrendous way to, effectively go on to lose that playoff final. So have a look at that, because that's kind of along this line, really. Just to kind of wrap up the Cheltenham game, Ross, did you, in the end, in your opinion, do you feel like we deserve to get more than the point out of it, or were we lucky to get the point, if that makes sense?
No, I think we had a good chance to win that in the second half. So I'll briefly talk through the game quickly. I thought that Reading were rubbish in the first 40 minutes, and Wing said as much in his post-match interview. But I also think that Cheltenham's game plan was exceptional, really, really good. So they identified that Makairu was not necessarily giving enough support to Dorset, and that Dorset, he's been good since he came into the team, but he's not the best at turning and getting back. Something you hear pilloried against Harry Maguire quite a bit. He can't really turn and get back towards his own goal if he does get past. So Sean Long, the number 2 out wide, was really giving him a lot of trouble. So Cheltenham basically they spread the field much wider than Reading wanted, and they just kept troubling us. They kept bypassing the parts of our game where in the middle, whereby we could have got the ball down and really caused them problems, because we have more quality than them. But once we got a hold on the game, we really had probably at least half an hour in the second half where we had Cheltenham completely at arm's length. They weren't really causing us any trouble, and Wing obviously had the nice free kick that Southwood saved. Very much enjoyed every time a set piece was queued up against Luke Southwood. Tom Holmes was going over to have a chat with him, and you could see them both laughing. Southwood's trying to organize his defense, meanwhile Holmes is trying to just rib him and stuff like that, which was very funny. And if you don't know the name Pukey North Metal, just have a look at that. Type that in Reading Football Club and see what you find. Do you know that, Ben?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Do you know, actually, I know we've got different opinions on this, just digressing slightly with Luke Southwood.
Yeah.
Do you think it could ever have worked out for him at our football club? Or do you think there was always kind of fundamental issues with him as a goalkeeper?
I think he's a great shot stopper, and I think that he showed that last night too, that he can be a good shot stopper. But I really like Luke Southwood. He seems like a lovely guy and everything.
He really is, yeah.
I'm just not convinced that you can be a goalkeeper in the professional game at that height unless you've got something absolutely dynamic
Yeah.
about you. I'm
It's
just not
difficult,
convinced.
isn't it? Because there was it George Campos?
Oh yeah,
The
yeah. It's funny.
you
I
know what
was
I'm
thinking
talking.
of South American goalkeepers too, and I was thinking of shorter goalkeepers that had actually done quite well.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
he was obviously very, very athletic, and there is an element of that to Luke Southwood, but like it's really difficult because he was every time I met he was always really, really good, and I had quite a few conversations with him, and there was quite a few things that when I was at Star he kind of helped me out with to kind of help uh, other fans out with messages and shirts and stuff like that, and he was really good, and I can't say relationship, that's not quite right, but we text occasionally and talk and stuff and all the rest of it, and he was really, really good, and I always look at that and think, was he kind of a byproduct of an absolutely horrendous football team that was filled with players that were probably out for themselves and kind
Hmm.
of poor coaching, or was it that there is actually a fundamental element of him potentially not being, to be blunt, a good goalkeeper? I don't know.
It
So
it's
it.
I
Go on.
think that he had trouble commanding his box, right? Like
Yeah,
always had trouble with that. And I think that showed last night. Like every single time we had a corner, we did the same thing. We just packed the 6 yard box full of players and basically told Southwood to pick his way through all of that, which lo
yeah,
and behold, he couldn't do. So I really, I really liked him. I'll always remember that Fulham, game for sure, where he made some fantastic saves
yeah.
to give us that win. But no, I just don't think it was ever going to work out. Really. Last thing I'll say on that, in terms of whether we should have won, Harvey Nibbs gets a chance from Wing, who was absolutely outstanding, by the way, at points in that game. And he puts it sort of at a nice height for the goalkeeper. I think if he manages to get his foot over that and drill it low, that's going to wriggle its way through, and that's going to be a win for Reading. So
Mm.
we don't quite create enough to make it a sure thing that we're going to win, games when we have them by the scruff of the neck. But I did think that there was an opportunity there to crack on.
And I think that's the problem with last night. I think in the end, a draw was it fair? I don't know. Cheltenham will feel hard done by, I guess, because you shouldn't really be blowing a game like that, in the time frame that they did in the first half for sure. But they have been in good form, so anything other than a loss, I guess, is a positive. You have to look at that anyway.
Yeah.
That's 5 points from 9 over the last 3 games, which is, we would have all taken that, and it keeps us kind of ticking over. But we were just far too passive, and it goes back to that age-old problem that I have with the formation, which we're not going to go into now, and also the midfield setup and the way that it's working. There are some really, really good components to the midfield, but then there are also some elements that I just think, do you know what, it could be so much better. Like we could change things a bit quicker, and we could be a little bit less rigid in the formation that we're currently playing to kind of suit the style of the game. But anyway, look, we'll take the 5 points out of the 9. We'll move on to Exeter, which we'll talk about later on in the pod. And we're going to do kind of like a whistle-stop tour of 2023. So you might want to grab, depending on what time you'll listen to this, a very strong coffee or indeed an alcoholic beverage, because there's some absolute shockers in here. So we're going to take a very quick break, and we'll be back with our Tilehurst 10 Writers review of 2023.
Keep up to date with all things Reading FC. Follow the Tilehurst End on Facebook and Twitter.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by ZCZ Films. Remember, if you want to get involved in sponsoring the show, drop us an email to thetilehurstend@gmail.com.
Welcome back to Tilehurst End Podcast 364. Ross, we've been doing this for about 20 shows now. That's crazy, isn't it?
I know. It's really, it's just, it's funny how you blink and suddenly you're months down the line.
Yeah. I mean, we've, obviously hope Ross has enjoyed it as well, but I have really enjoyed it, despite what,
Oh, yeah.
despite how people disagree with the views, which is absolutely what we want, by the way. That's absolutely fine. That's a good, healthy discussion. But, we never, ever take this for granted, being able to talk about Reading, because, come rain or shine, as the little link advert says in our pod, we do love talking about Reading Football Club, and hopefully that shows. Talking about loves and Reading Football Club and everything else, we asked. It's kind of like a tradition that we have here at Tilehurst End, not just with the columns that we write or the articles, but also the podcast, where we kind of review the calendar year that we've just done and kind of look ahead to the next one. And it's been tricky because, as you all know, we've had an absolute shocker of 365 days. We were talking off air. We've had 3 managers, which is not good in itself, really. That's kind of one every 4 months. We kind of very hastily worked out that we won 8 points in the Championship in 2023, and we've won 20 in League One. Now, if you add on the points deductions that we had moved from us for various reasons, #DieYoung, we would have had 32 points in total, which is still not great in a calendar year. Still not great at all.
No.
And before we go into anything else, I actually had a stat sent to me by a QPR supporting fan, who I do like, by the way. And this is
the
from
fan or the team, because that's an
footballrates.com.
important distinction.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, exactly. And he sent me this as a screenshot from their Twitter page. And it says, most league games lost in the last 5 years.
Oof.
Since January the 1st, 2019. Top 4 tiers only. Queen's Park Rangers are top with 104. Don't know if you want to be top of that, but they've lost 104 league games in the last 5 years.
Oof.
Birmingham have lost 101.
Okay.
Doncaster, 100. And Reading, 99. We've lost 99 league games in the last 5 years. And just to round that off, because I know people like to know the full extent of what we're talking about, Huddersfield were on 96.
Okay. That's the worst 99 flake I've ever had.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, that you'd be asking for a refund if you got that from an ice cream van.
Yeah.
That's horrendous, isn't it?
That is awful.
99 league games we've lost in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
Yeah, at least
Not
it's
good.
99, not 100, so that it seems in your brain like a little bit less, but it's really not.
Exactly. The most Reading thing ever to avoid 100 on the last game of the 5 years. Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, right. So we asked our esteemed writers in what we call, it sounds a bit, I don't know, what's the word? Elitist, but we have like an editors group, if you like. I'm not an editor, by the way. I'm just an idiot with a microphone. But we asked a number of questions of them. So that included Ollie Allen, Adam Jones, who you all know from like the previews that he does, Mark Mayo, previous host of this esteemed podcast, Sim, who is the actual editor of the whole thing, and then Ross as well. I didn't do mine. We didn't get one from Wimby, actually. Maybe we can do that in retrospect. But anyway, so we're going to go one by one, and we'll have a little chat about them, and then Ross is going to kind of finish us off with his blockbuster picks. So Ollie's player of 2023 is Lewis Wing. Okay. His most improved is Femi Aziz. His underachiever is Sam Hutchinson. That's brave. Putting him in any category is brave, I think.
Yeah.
Worst moment was relegation. Golden moment was beating Wickham away, which was really quite a special day for this football club, I have to say. Comedy moment, you'll like this one, Ross, because we know how you feel about Paul Ince. Paul Ince, I forgot he said this actually. Paul Ince saying he wasn't concerned about his future before being sacked the next day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most Paul Ince thing ever, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, you've seen he's been kicking off this week too, saying that the Prem's not as good as Serie A back in the 80s or something like that. Yeah.
What a weirdo.
Yeah, what a weirdo.
Bizarre. But I forgot he'd done that. Of all the comedy things he'd done, and we could just do a column on Paul Ince, couldn't we, really, for these awards? Most missed, he says Yaku Mete. Interesting. Wouldn't agree with that necessarily, but
okay.
Character-wise, I think, he was a good servant for this football club. And then breakout, he's put Jaden Wareham, which I think is a really good shout. Actually, I think given the lightness in numbers of our striking department. I think Jaden has got a really good opportunity to be able to start to make matchday squads towards the end of this season, potentially.
Yeah.
I think he can compete in League One. I've watched him a number of times at under 21s, and that's very different. But there's something about him as a player, for sure.
Yeah,
I really like.
sure. Yeah, no,
What do
he's
you
been
think
one of the
of-
ones I've been wanting to see since he obviously joined the club, and yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, we don't really have I mean, I guess Kelvin a little bit, but he doesn't really play in this way. But like some sort of like strong striker, like Wareham, he's got very broad shoulders. Could be good to see. So yeah, no, I agree with that one. Wareham could be interesting.
I mean, I'm going to pick back up on Lewis Wing because we go to Adam Jones now, and he says player of 2023 is Lewis Wing, and in brackets he put game changer during 23-24. How, we talked about Sam Smith, we talked about Femi Aziz at the top of the podcast. How important is Lewis Wing to us currently, Ross?
I think that the way in which you can see how important Lewis Wing is that as soon as Reading were able to actually get the ball down last night and play on the floor, Wing was just he was just the best. He wasn't just the best player on the pitch. He was the best player in the postcode, right? Like, he was just fantastic compared to anyone else on the pitch. Some of the curl on some of those deliveries into the box, it's absolutely illegal, the amount of curl that he can put on that ball. So I'm a man who had multiple Swift jerseys. I like myself a creative midfielder for sure, and Wing in the first few games of the season, he looked very leggy. He wasn't fit, clearly. He could barely move. It was like wheeling siege equipment around. But he's just improved so much, and he's crucial right now. He's clearly, if not our most effective player, although I think he is as well, I just think he's got a level of talent that is above what anyone else on the team can provide, really. So I bet he's fun to watch in training.
I think it's interesting as well is that the players around him are picking up on the balls that he makes now. I think to start with, they had no idea really where he was trying to get those balls through, and we were quite, well, I say we, can't remember if Ross was. I was quite critical of him on the pod in the early days because I just didn't really see what he was bringing to the team. But now, he is very, very good, and I'm wondering whether or not we can get him on the ball even more potentially. The thing I've been really surprised with is, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but his work rate, like his athleticism. He gets around the park. Do you know what I mean?
He does, yeah.
Like he pops up everywhere. So, he doesn't look a player that would do that, but he does, and he's been absolutely excellent. So, yeah, I think it's interesting that they're both picking a player that only joined in the summer. So I think that tells you everything where we are as a club really at the moment. But yeah. Most improved, he also says Femi Aziz towards the back end of 2023. I wonder if we were doing this poll in November, which would make it utterly pointless, if we would have chosen Femi Aziz, but certainly he he's in there. I think Nelson Abbey needs to be in that mix because you can't step up from the under 21s at that level and then become one of the,
I would agree,
dare I say it, one of the most accomplished defenders in the league at the moment, Nelson Abbey. I might be overdoing him, slightly, but do you know what I mean? Like, he's kind of gone from the under 21s. Not many fans knew about him, and he's suddenly been he's basically one of the first names on the team sheet now.
The fact that none of us picked him, as our best player or most improved or whatever, just shows like how he's just it's an afterthought how good he is now. It's like, yeah, he's great. He is one of the first names on the team sheet, and he should play whenever he's fit. And for a guy who is 20, born on God, it is sickening when you look at that, isn't it? Born on the 28th of August 2003.
Absolute vomit. I started university in 2003. That's gross.
Yeah, it is just he has been outstanding, and a great again, a really good servant for the club. So Yeah,
Played for
really.
England youth as well. He's had a great year. Ended up playing for his
For sure.
country.
Yeah, exactly.
In the under
So,
20s. So yeah. Adam says underachiever is Nestor Guinness Walker. Failed to build on 22-23, although not fully his fault. We could do a podcast on Nestor Guinness Walker, to be honest with you. He seems to have dropped off the face of the earth, as a number of other players have at the club recently. But yeah, I suppose that's not a bad shout. Worst
no.
moment, obviously relegation. We knew it was coming, but it still didn't soften the blow. Comedy moment, he says Socksgate. So you will remember in the summer, was it Sutton? I think it was Sutton. Where still before we died, in the early stages of doing like their protest, and they planned to basically get everyone to lob socks on the pitch, and then they pulled it, I think, the morning of the game, which it's not for me to comment on what they do really, but that's Adam's comedy moment. I think as well that he was kind of involved with that, so I think he's kind of having a bit of a laugh at himself there potentially. But yeah, if Socksgate is probably a good way to describe that. Most missed, Yaku Mate, Ray of Light, love him. I think if you've ever read anything that Adam's done, he always talks about Yaku Mate, so it's not a surprise there. And then breakout, he's put Taylor Harris, which again I don't think is a massively left field shout, because again he's been quite good for the under 21s.
Yeah.
He's put followed closely by John Clark, who has missed 90 something % of the year through injury. So we hope that John Clark, he did come back actually, didn't he, last week for the under 21s?
Yes, he did. Yeah, which was
There's
great to see.
The breakout, Ross, is such an interesting, I guess, hard fought category this year, because there's so many potentials in that current under 21 setup that we could be talking about anyone here, couldn't we? Really?
Yeah, no, you're right. And for a while, especially at the start of the season, before we had a settled squad or a settled first team, it really seemed like we kind of just had like a similar level of talent through the full 25 to 30 players that we had between the first team and the under 21s and everything. So there's a lot of players in there that you could throw a hat over a large amount of them, and any of them could be the one. I'll be interested to see if anyone else has got my breakout for the next year. But yeah, we'll go. Quick name one on Taylor Harris, who obviously scored against Exeter in the 9-0 rout. I think that that was the first time I'd ever become aware of the name Taylor. So
it's an interesting one, isn't it?
It is a funny one, yeah. So we've got Taylor and Kalen on the team, which is always funny.
Big guy as well, physical guy. He looks like a prospect, and we hope, and this is what we want. We want these players to come through and stake a claim in the club. And we're not allowed to buy anyone. We probably won't buy anyone before 2050. But that's why we need to rely on these players coming through from the under 21s. Mark Mayo, podcast host, alumni. Did you say alumni or alumni? How do you
alumni?
say?
Alumni is what I would say, or just alum. That works too.
Alum. Yeah. Okay. So what do you call two people that are alumni?
Alumni.
Okay, fine.
No,
a Joe Lumley.
No. I just wanted to make a Joe Lumley joke. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, who you've reached out, haven't you? You're going to try and get him on the old.
Well, we'll see. How things work, but I think it's kind of like dating in your teen years, Ben. Like you or searching for a job, whatever you want to do. You ask 50 times and you get one, which is totally fine. These people are busy guys. So anytime we get to talk to someone, fantastic. And anytime someone doesn't have the time for it, we totally understand.
And we're a semi-professional joke of a podcast anyway, so we'll take what we can get, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Anyway, alumni, Mark Mayo. He says player of 2023, Harvey Nibbs, most consistent League One performer. Most consistent League One performer. That's an interesting. I suppose he has been consistent. I don't know about the whole of the league, but
he's kind of.
He's right. He's been good.
I guess he's saying like for us in League One, right? But
right, yeah, okay.
That's
Yeah,
an
that's a good
interesting
point.
one still. But yeah, no, I agree. Harvey Nibbs has been good. Video going out on Harvey Nibbs today. Get on that, Reading fans.
Yeah, we're going to do a recap of all the stuff that Ross has done and all the other bits that other people have done, because there's a lot coming out for you guys over the next couple of days. So yeah, look forward to them. Most improved, Sam Smith. Yeah, I'd agree with that. He said he had no discernible quality in his first spell, but is now a superb League One frontman. Yeah, I don't think there's much to argue with that one, is there really? He's definitely working towards that, and yeah, I think no discernible quality in his first spell is a really good way of summing up his first period with us, really.
Yeah,
Underachiever, Lucas Jow. Poor Lucas.
poor Lucas. He ran
Yeah,
into the Paul Ince train, didn't he?
he did, yeah, with both barrels.
Yeah.
Golden moment, Wickham away. Yeah, really great day, as we've said. Worst moment, Huddersfield sending us down before the final day. Took away chance for a great escape at their place and embarrassing over 1,000 of our fans that then didn't bother showing up. Yeah, I mean, I was in one of those categories, I have to say. I did have a ticket. I just
I
didn't
know.
go. I just thought, do you know what? It's done. And I think I was still in recovery. So, yeah. Comedy moment, he's put a link. I don't know what he's done there. He did say honourable mention for me versus the Access All Areas bloke. Who's Luke Wallace, who's one of the media team. We've sorted that out. It was a misunderstanding. I wasn't having a go at Luke. I just said I didn't think anyone wanted to see a behind the scenes video of us losing to a non-league team in the cup. That's it.
Oh.
Wasn't anything to do with Access All Areas. But Mark's just stirring the pot there, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's going after you. He's
He
going after
is.
you.
Most missed, Josh Loren.
Still?
Josh Loren, thoughts on him?
I mean, yeah, I guess just see what he's saying. Like we could do with, right? We've talked about like Savage and Craig and all of these kinds of guys, but if we had Josh Laurent playing in that, one, then yeah, he'd be great. But I think he's having a bit of a mare at Stoke at the moment. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologize, Josh, because I do love you. But yeah, no, I think he would definitely help this team right now.
Interesting that no one's picked Tom Ince so far, because at one point he was the saviour, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I think the less said about the Inces, the better at this point, isn't it? And that seems to be
Yeah,
the
I
way
think
that
you're
it goes
probably
at
right.
every club. Like those two, they sort of flatter to deceive, and they're very popular in their first 9 months or so, and then it sort of goes off the boil.
Yeah. Breakout, he said Charlie Wellens, who is the son of Richie Wellens, who's another ex-Manchester United player. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen much of Charlie, to be honest with you. I know he's kind of featured a bit, but I've not focused on him too much. So again, these aren't bad shouts. We've got a lot of potential quality in the under-21s. As we said earlier, it's just about them coming through. So Charlie Wellens is not a bad one. Mark's put some other bits on there about comedy moments. I mean, there's been a lot of comedy moments, really. But we won't go into those. We'll leave those for the chat, I think. Sim, editor-in-chief, chief of all editors, whatever you want to call him. Player of the year is put Andy Yeard on. I don't think I can go with that, personally. What do you think?
Who have you got? What was that on the player of 23
No,
or the
Sim's
most
put
improved?
player of the year Andy Yeard on.
Oh, interesting. He might be trying to wind us up. That's an interesting one, yeah, for sure. Andy Yeardom is the player of the year. Okay.
I don't know. Is he being serious with that?
I'm going to assume that's a tongue-in-cheek one. Maybe I'm not. Sorry, Andy. That's awful, isn't it? No, I mean Andy still has some talent, and he's I don't know, weird year for Yeardom. Less said the better.
Yeah. Oh well. Most improved player, he's put Nelson Abbey, which we didn't know before we read it out, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's not a bad shout either.
Nice.
Underachiever award, he's put Dai Yong. Controversial.
Yeah. Well, I'll reveal that's my one as well, so I'll hastily change that then. But Dai was definitely my one.
Golden moment, winning 9-0 at Exeter. We've just kind of forgotten about that, haven't we? Really.
He's read my report here. Well, actually, no, I had some other ones too, but I've got the 9-0 down as well.
Do you know what? You could have had Fulham as well, because that was quite a result for that young team, and that was when you were like, hold on a second, we might have some players here.
Fulham or is it Millwall?
Yeah, Millwall, yeah. In the cup.
Millwall, yeah. Yeah, that was a good one, wasn't it?
Worst moment, relegation. Pretty standard, really. Comedy moment, there was like a relegation conga at Huddersfield, which,
Yeah,
depending on where you fell on the line at that time, was either hilarious or disrespectful, embarrassing, and tin pot. Um, Most missed, he's put
yeah,
Josh Loren. No, he hasn't put. Yeah, he has. Yeah, but he's also put championship status because he says there's no official rule; it has to be a person.
that's true.
Um,
That's true. That is a good one, actually. Yeah, so I
so yeah,
do.
I
It
think
is
I think
frustrating
championship
when you have
status
to
is
go
something that
looking
we'd
at
all
the
quite
League
like
One
back. To
results,
be honest with you,
rather than
without getting all
the
teary and upset,
championship
but
ones for sure.
I think it's yeah, I think that's not a bad shout really. And then breakout prediction, he's put John Clark, who, as we said, has missed a lot of this season for injury, but is there's potential there to do very, very well. So yeah, there's some good ones really. Ross, let's go to you.
Okay.
What have you? What are you feeling about these? We've got Player of the Year, Most Improved, Underachiever, Worst Moment, Comedy Moment, Golden Moment, Most Missed, Breakout. Shoot.
All right. Well, I've got Player of the Year. I've gone for Aziz. Um, I just think that Aziz changes games, and I think that obviously Wing was very, very close for me as well because again, he changes games. And Abby, after it was mentioned there, really gave me some last minute thoughts. But no, I'm going to go with Aziz. When Aziz dribbles diagonally towards the box, opposition defenses panic, and we need a bit of that. So, yeah, no, I've got to go with Aziz. Under most improved, I've gone with Michael Craig. I do like me a bit of Michael Craig. I don't know. I like players that help in the build up. I know that he's still got some learning to do. Um, but I think that, if we're talking a minute ago about how Josh Laurent is kind of like where you want players to go in that regard as a holding midfielder, Craig for me has been pretty good so far. And last night the game turned when the ball wasn't sailing over Craig's head over and over again. It was actually being played
Mm,
to him, and then he could play it out to Wing in dangerous places. So yeah, I've gone with Craig with that.
difficult with Craig. Like I
Underachiever, I've gone for
some
Die. Go ahead.
yeah, okay. I was just going to say about
It's
Craig,
got
like
it.
it's someone tweeted and said, I said he was terrible, shouldn't be at the club. I never said that. I feel like there's more potential in other players
Hmm.
that aren't getting a look in than Michael Craig, and I think we're going to get to a situation where he needs a break.
I agree.
Um, I feel like there's a lot of work that he needs to do still, and that's understandable when you are a young player. But again, it goes back to the formation. If he was in a different formation, I think he'd be a better player. That's my personal
Interesting.
opinion. I think at times he's guilty of ball watching. I think at times he's guilty of just not using the ball effectively, which I guess all of our players are. But my kind of official line on that is that I want all of our players to succeed and do well. I just think that there is more potential in other players elsewhere in the squad. That's my personal opinion on Michael Craig. Anyway,
Yeah.
Dai Young, carry on.
Oh yeah, Die Young's got to be underachiever of the year. I don't think there's any way you can. I don't think there's any way you can look past him. Sim's already said it, so maybe I'll say Pang. But no, it's Die, isn't it? So,
It can't be
um,
Pang, mate, because you've got to have done something in the first place to be an underachiever.
yeah, that's a
So
good point.
you can't have him.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I barely even know who he is, so that's fair. Worst moment. Worst moment. I've gone for relegation, yes, obviously, and that was mentioned. But just another little aside: the Don Ballard injury. I've kind of knocked down in the worst moment. That was a horrible one. Ballard was playing well for Reading. The numbers bore that out, as well as the actual performances. He was very direct. But yeah, really horrible injury, and saw a lovely little video on the Southampton social medias earlier last week of Russell Martin giving him a big hug, and when he sees Ballard coming around the corner, he's on a lot of crutches. Doesn't look like he can move particularly easily. So we wish Ballard all the best. for sure, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of potential, and you could be really
Hmm.
cool and say underachiever because of his injury, but we won't do that. But I was really excited for him to kick on with us, and I think he provided a different outlet. Certainly when him and Smith were playing together, we looked a lot more potent up top. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but we wish him all the best and hope that he can get his career kind of back on track. Really.
Agreed. Yeah. I for the comedy moment, I've done a last minute switch to that Mbenge goal last night because come on now, that's gonna be replayed forever.
Yeah, it was a
Uh,
shocker. Someone said that all they can hear is the Benny Hill music behind it.
yeah,
Which is,
yeah.
yeah, I just thought it was great. Like it's just the more you watch it, the worse it gets.
Do you
Um,
know? Do you know Scatman John, the like the
yeah, I
scat song?
do. Yes,
No. Okay. Well,
yeah,
yeah, it's obviously like a bit mental and all over the place. And I just like to imagine. I often say like, so I've got a pair of bulldogs, and one of them is exceptionally stupid. And I always like to say that's what's going on in his head 100% of the time, basically. I just like to imagine that's what was going on in Mbenge's head at that point. No thoughts, just smash it off Button's arse and into the back of the net. So yeah, pretty funny. And now I can look back. Golden moment. Yes, the 9-0 against Exeter. Can't turn down a 9-0, can you? That's pretty awesome. But I've gone for the March before the Portsmouth game. I thought that was a really lovely moment for showing that the Reading fans are coming together. And actually, in general, if we talk about a golden, the best thing about this year has been seeing the fans. Yes, still, disagreeing about the ways in which to protest and things like that, but for the most part, coming together on a common cause, and really showing the country that we're not, little old Reading or whatever, and quiet bunch and all of these kinds of things. We're actually, like a passionate fan base, full of people who really love this club. So that's kind of
mm.
been my golden moment slash thing of the year, I would say. Stemming.
I think it's a good point. Like with that golden moment, like it's it's in the worst possible circumstances, but when we had Sarah on a couple of podcasts ago, or a few podcasts ago now,
Yeah.
she made the point really, really well. And I think what I've learned, not just since doing this podcast, but doing kind of videos and opinions and stuff, is that there's always going to be someone who disagrees with you, and that's absolutely fine. I feel like there is a bit more of a healthy debate going on with fans rather than a kind of you're an idiot and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think the march was good, was positive because, as you say, it did bring people together, and I think ultimately that's what football clubs should do.
Yeah.
Ultimately we want the best for the football club. We just sometimes can't work out, the best way forward to do it. But I think people are realizing that this football club is more than a football club to them in the way that they treat it and the way that they are. And I think that comes with kind of hopefully a bit more respect between fans and how people feel about it. But yeah, I mean that's not it's not a bad golden moment at all, really.
No. I've
Yeah.
also gone for Mate and the most missed. I'm sorry. I like my fast and strong wingers, and I enjoyed those videos back in the day where Mate was sort of getting all the players in the dressing room to dance and stuff like that. And he's also another one who I've got I've got a Mate shirt, so I had to go with him really. So yeah, I'm glad to see you scoring some goals in Cardiff. And then lastly, on the breakout player, I don't know if this counts as a breakout, but I'm going to say that it does. I've gone for Kanaya Boyce Clark. And I've gone for him because I don't think Button or Pereira are necessarily the long-term answer at Reading in terms of goalkeeping. And I think that Boyce Clark has had some decent performances, in the trophy and things like that. So it would be nice to see a player, come through and just solve that sort of issue for us. I don't think we've really been settled at goalkeeper for a little while now. So I'd like to see him now. But all of that said, he's only 6 foot tall. and I've just criticised Southwood, obviously, for not being big enough. So I could be completely wrong about that.
I feel
But
like
let's
you're very
just
sizist. I think this is the problem,
I
actually.
am, yeah. Which is funny because I'm 5'7", so I'm a small gentleman myself. But I don't know. I think you need to be told to come and collect crosses as a goalkeeper, especially in this league. So yeah, I've gone for Boyce Clark, but I could be talking as per usual. I could be talking out of my arse with that one.
Well, do you know, of all those, I didn't do them because I just forgot. Basically, I was too busy kind of getting everything sorted for the pod. But my breakthrough has got to be Reading Football Club, because
Nice.
we have to find a way collectively on and off the pitch to break this cycle that we're in. And obviously, I know it starts from the very top in terms of who owns the club, but there are so many things that the club can do and can look to do moving forward. And there's going to be sort of changes moving forward into 2024. And the key thing is kind of progressing and not kind of staying where we are, because we could sit here and go, it can't get any worse. It obviously can get worse, because we could get relegated
Yeah.
again, which would, if the season ended tomorrow, we would be. We could, go into administration, all this kind of stuff. So for me, I want to stay positive. I want to say the breakthrough for 2024 has got to be the whole of Reading Football Club. And you can, listeners can kind of interpret that in the way that they want to. But, it's got to change. We can't keep going the way that we're going.
Yeah.
Because there won't be anyone left otherwise. So we just hope that 2024 is going to be even mildly better than 2023. And we can hope for a kind of a better future moving forward, really. Talking of futures and moving forward, we've got one game. We've got one game to kind of preview, which is Exeter at home on New Year's Day. So we're going to do that right about now, after this very short break.
There's another huge game ahead for the Royals, so be loud and be proud for the big match preview.
Welcome back to the Tilehurst End podcast. Now, of course, you may know that there are some storms and the like going on in the UK at the moment. And we did record a preview for the Exeter game with Ben involved here. But for some reason, it just hasn't picked up on him. Something to do with him being in the garage, or the garage, as I'd say, as a semi-American, I'm sure. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and press on, give you a bit of an Exeter preview anyway, and then just a closing out part here. So let's talk about Exeter first. Obviously, we're playing them on, I think it's Monday. We're in the sort of nether region, aren't we, between Christmas and New Year's, where you don't know what day it is. But yeah, playing them on Monday, and looking forward to the game. It'll be the only time of the year where I can say I've been to as many Reading games as everybody else in the year, so I'll be there. So Exeter, they've been sliding really, really poorly down the table since we played them and lost to them 2-1 earlier in the season with a last minute winner for Exeter. A real stinker when we really weren't proving to be resilient in games, and we were shipping a lot of late goals. Situation's changed. If we did have our 4 points back, we'd be above them. But as it goes, we're not. We're 3 points behind them with a higher goal difference, which means that if we win this game, we're going to be out of the relegation zone for the first time in, well, what feels like forever. So it's a huge game. I imagine Caldwell is on the hot seat. Exeter scored just 14 goals so far this season in 23 games, which, I mean, Exeter fans, I am sorry. That sounds like not a whole lot of fun, especially when you consider that obviously 2 of those were scored against Reading. So that's 12 goals in 22 games that you've had to enjoy. And the 9-0 thrashing, of course, in the EFL trophy. Now, Reading, we're unbeaten in 5 now, and this really feels like a game that, if we can get this win, and I think that we can, I doubt that it's going to be a very changed lineup. If we can get this win, then I think that this is going to put us in great standing for hopefully a positive 2024. like we talked about earlier, 2023 in terms of earning points is a real naff one for Reading, and I don't think that we're gonna repeat that. But starting off with a win would really be the way to go. If I was going to make any changes, I would probably withdraw Makairu, and perhaps put Elliott in his place, maybe even Vickers. But I think that Elliott possibly deserves a go in the team. I thought that when he came on against Cheltenham yesterday, he did look better than Makairu had in that position, despite Makairu scoring, of course. So yeah, I think if there's one change I'd like to see, it's that, but I don't think that that's going to happen personally. Makairu, while he could be frustrating in that he doesn't release the ball nearly early enough, he does contribute higher up the field defensively. So yeah, it's probably going to be him again for this particular game. So with that in mind, I still think we've got enough to beat Exeter there. If we ship 2 goals to them, I mean, that's really an issue. Obviously, we shouldn't be shipping 2 goals again to a team that isn't scoring, really. And we have been a little bit better at home. So I would hope that this is a game that Reading can win. And like I say, we'll be out of the relegation zone then. Ben did mention that would make my prediction come true of getting to the end of this block of games and being out of the relegation zone finally. And we'll hope that it happens down at the Select Car Leasing Stadium on the first of the year. So really looking forward to that. So with that in mind, we'll bring the final podcast of 2023 to an end. Ben and I do just want to say, a massive thank you to everybody that's listened in 2023 to not just us, but to obviously Mark, who handed the podcast off to us this year. He did a fantastic job for years and years, of course, and we really appreciated Mark. He was actually, one of the voices that brought me into the whole Tilehurst and fan community and all of that great stuff. So myself, as an expat, I just love producing content for you guys, and it really helps me to maintain a sense of Britishness and Englishness, while I am surrounded by Americans and all kinds of great people back home. So just a massive thank you to everyone who's watched any of our videos, read any of our columns, interacted with the podcast, and just thank you for accepting us after we took over this podcast, really. Now, there's lots of great content on the Tilehurst end. There is going to be a little break in games after the Exeter game. It'll be a little while until we play again against the Brighton under-21s in the EFL Trophy. So in the meantime, there is loads of fantastic content coming out for you. It might be another week or so until we get another podcast out. But in the meantime, we'll have a video out, hopefully on the Exeter game. There's also some fantastic articles that Sim has done on the 2023 year, I suppose, and the things that have happened. He's broken that down into 4 pieces. So really check that out. It's really great. Bobbins has done some stuff for us as well, and Ben's article, I give him a hard time, but his Dolan end articles are great. They really tap into the experience of being a football fan, and Ben's got a really good sense of that. I think much better than I do from being across the ocean and only really getting to watch on Reading TV. So thanks again to everyone who's listened this year. And by the way, if you do want to get involved, we're always looking for more people. Please do reach out. If you've ever thought about writing something about the club, whether that be on the fan experience, the tactics, the what they serve at the concourse, all these kinds of things. It's all part of the experience. It's all part of the community. So please do get involved. It's at tilehurstend@gmail.com if you want to submit an idea and maybe do something, and we're always looking for help. Now, thank you as well to everybody who's contributed to the mailbag or anything like that this year. We love reading out your questions, as I think you guys can tell. We really love interacting with you guys. So thank you again for a really fantastic 2023 with you guys, even though on the pitch, obviously, it's been a bit naff. But yeah, that's all I've got. So thank you for sticking with me through this little Benless preview here and summary of 2023. It's been fantastic. Again, like I say, we're hoping for bigger and better things for the club in 2024. And I believe, guys, that's coming. So keep the faith. Up the Royals, let's go. All right, so everybody have a fantastic new year, and I wish you all of the best in 2024, and of course I wish the Royals all the best in 2024. And this has been the Tilehurst podcast. Hope you're having a good time wherever you are. Come on, you Royals.